interpersonal violence since graduate school, about 25 years now. This is something that I do in my private practice with patients in therapy, but also in the legal system as well. So I'm going to talk about some mindfulness hacks. How are there ways that we can try to get some sense of safety in our own home? And that's, obviously we want physical safety always, but also emotional safety when we're being attacked verbally and berated and controlled. Like, how do we get a sense of being regrouped? And what I want to just start with is understanding that this kind of interpersonal trauma, interferes with so many domains of our sort of psychological being. And that sometimes makes it difficult for us to regulate and to get grounded and get calm again. It affects our sense of attachment and relationships, of boundaries and trust. It affects our physical health, how we feel the trauma in our bodies. It affects our emotional regulation, our ability to cope and manage the emotional responses. It affects our behavior, that sometimes our behavior can be volatile or high risk because we feel dysregulated. We can feel dissociative. We can feel detached. It can affect our attention and cognition. When we're overwhelmed, attention and focus is one of those things that goes out the window immediately. And then so all of these things kind of affect our ability to be our coherent self, like who we are as a person. So, one of the things that we know is that, and this is kind of drawing upon some of the work of Stephen Porges, is, that we have these things built in our brain, these neuroreceptors that understand danger and safety and life threat. And they get activated without sometimes our cognitive thought, right? And our nervous system then detects that. And when that nervous system detects that, again, whether it's sort of verbal assaults or physical assaults, our sympathetic nervous system gets activated. And the sympathetic nervous system is meant to keep us safe, but it sends all these sort of things wiring in our body that give us that sort of fight or flight, that agitated, anxiety, fear-based place. And then what we're trying to do to regulate and to calm down is try to connect with that part of ourselves to regulate ourselves, right? We want to kind of try to regulate what I call our vagus nerve hacks, right? So the vagus nerve is when, it goes from the head down to the throat, down to the chest, right? And that's what happens when we get supercharged. When we're overwhelmed, we need some kind of skill to reset our brains so that we can try to move on and get grounded, to keep doing our work, to get sort of back in the moment, or just to feel better. So when we're anxious and panicked, right, we may freeze. We can't just tell it to stop, but we can certainly put a brake on it to try to activate its counterpart, right? And the counterpart is the parasympathetic nervous system. That's what kind of brings our bodies sort of back to that baseline. And we call it the vagus nerve because it's that wandering nerve that sort of is the major controller of the parasympathetic nervous system. So a few kind of simple hacks or simple techniques that we can do to try to bring that down is to kind of physiologically calm ourselves down. Now, one of them, and interesting, we did that last week in Patricia's presentation, was singing, right? Using this part of our body, humming, oming, om, singing. Those activate the vagus nerve, which basically tells the brain, like, wait a minute, what's going on? I have to focus on something else. And that has the ability of calming down our body. So sometimes it's thinking about, is there a favorite song that you like to sing? We talked about last week about the childhood songs. Sometimes some of us, those are both positive memories. Sometimes it's just, I have one client who sings the ABCs. ABC, that becomes a calming ritual for her. Gargling. Sometimes you can just go in the bathroom, and if you have the Listerine or you have the Cinnamon Act, whatever it is, you can just do a quick gargle, right? Things that are available. You can just get some warm salt water. The gargling kind of can activate that vagus nerve that allows the body to sort of calm down. Splashing water on your face, cold water. Sometimes we see those folks who put their face in a big bowl of ice water, right? It shocks the brain. It shocks the vagus nerve that says, I've got to do something other than being in this fight or flight response. Sometimes putting a cold, washcloth on the nape of your neck, your brainstem, right? Things that the brain has to figure out what's going on, right? We're trying to shock and activate that vagus nerve. Burping, right? Now we're getting down into our abdomen, trying to burp kind of activates that whole vagal nerve, which is really going to help calm us down. And then we're back to sort of what I'm going to talk about a little, really being mindful of our breath, right? When we do deep, slow breaths, that's known to activate the vagus nerve. It's known to activate and trigger our parasympathetic nervous system. We cannot be hyper aroused and deep, calm breathing at the same time, right? They're not going to go together. So your brain wants to pick one or the other. And one of the tricks is that you really want to exhale longer than you inhale, right? So, we always want to remember that when we inhale, we're inflating that balloon, right? So we want to push out that belly. As women, we always walk around, we're told to suck in our stomach so, we don't, look heavy. But we really want it when you have that hand on your belly and you inhale, for a count of 4, that belly should be really big and distended. But then we want to try to exhale. Almost to a count of 8 if we can. Sometimes people say when they start this, they can feel dizzy. So you might want to start it slowing down while you're sitting. But these are some ways that, you can do something in that moment. So some of the sort of mindful techniques are really kind of been around for hundreds and thousands of years that people have been using. And they've been known to sort of, now that we have some more neuropsychological research, to really regulate our systems. So thinking, there's a few that I like to use, and I want to also give a shout out to my colleagues at Weill Cornell Medical College, where I am on the faculty, and we've been using these throughout March with all of our faculty members and our first responders whose sort of sympathetic nervous system also was on overdrive in working through COVID. And one of the ones that we use is the 5-finger breathing, right? So where when you go up, we inhale, and then when we go down, we exhale. And when we go up, we inhale, and when we go down, we exhale. Right? So when we're doing this, we're doing a motoric movement, right, which is having the brain focus on something else, and we're doing the breathing, which is doing our vagus nerve stimulation, right? And it also makes it very concrete. You can go all the way to the end, go all the way back, and then do the other hand. A very kind of simple thing that we can use to sort of kind of regulate ourselves. The other one, and I talked about this, I think, in one of our first, is a loving kindness meditation. When you're being injured and hurt and put down, we want to bring some kindness and some love and some attention to yourself. So when you're kind of thinking about, doing your breathing, kind of choosing, I would say sort of choosing a posture from a place of power, choosing a posture that represents dignity, that represents your self-worth, which is sort of, our shoulders are back and we're sitting up, and when we're taking in that breath and we're exhaling, one of the mantras that we can come up with that we've been using is, may I be safe, may I be healthy, may I have peace of mind. And of course, we do that much slower, corresponding with our breath. And the loving kindness, what we also do is we push that forward. We allow that to also go to the external world and somebody who we have kind of deep affection for, or who is in our kind of mind at this moment. And then with our breath, we say, may you be safe, may you be healthy, and may you have peace of mind. So these are, again, some just little hacks and techniques that you can use. And my clients say to me, and I'm guilty, I say to myself, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to meditate. And we can find these moments in our day where this is what we do. When I go get my iced coffee at 3 o'clock, I'm going to do, as I'm waiting and I'm getting it out of the fridge, I'm going to do a mindful meditation while I'm doing that. When I go to the bathroom, when I wash my hands, when I take the dog for a walk, when I feed the cat, whatever it is, kind of pick up a sort of a regular everyday activity that you do and say, this is where I'm going to do sort of a loving kindness meditation for myself, so that I'm making sure that I'm trying to protect my soul and my psyche while things around me may really be out of control and may really be damaging. I'm not going to let that damage me. I'm going to do very best I can to wrap some bubble wrap and to give myself those moments of loving kindness. And the final thing that I'll say is that, mindfulness, so we have the mindful meditation, right? We have the mindful hacks, which is the vagus nerve stuff, but then there's just some mindful behaviors that we can allow ourselves to engage in. And that can be mindful stretching, like just taking that moment where I'm just going to stretch and I'm going to lean, you know, and I'm going to pull, and I'm just going to allow my spine to move around, and doing that with intention, saying, you know, I'm doing this because this is okay for myself. This isn't, I'm going to not sign up for an hour and a half yoga class, but I'm going to say, I'm just going to stretch my body. And we were actually doing that in the hospital in between rounds, in between handoffs. And it really made a difference for folks. 2 minutes we're talking. We're not talking about 30 minutes, even 5 minutes. These little things really can add up and help. And then there's also the mindful walking. Given that we're all sort of stuck in COVID, most of us in the house working from home, I'm working from home since March 11th, being able to go out and walk and doing that with mindful intention. Look at the sky. What do you notice? Is it blue? Is it white? Is it gray? Is it cloudy? What are the smells that you notice? What are the sights that you notice? And this could be a short 15-minute walk. This can be an hour walk, whatever you want, but kind of thinking about it of giving back to yourself. And these are the little things that, you know, I hope you can find might be helpful for you to implement so that you can have some sense of emotional safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dawn. That was really, really informative. Lots of practical suggestions. Yeah. Next, we have Lori Gill.
Thanks, Larry. So my name is Lori Gill. I'm the founder and clinical director of the Attachment and Trauma Treatment Center for Healing. And what I would like to do is share just a really practical resource for connection when we feel isolated. This is based on Laurel Parnell's attachment-focused EMDR model. Running a trauma center, we work with a lot of people who just don't have supportive resources in their lives, or particularly with the pandemic, they're not able to access those resources that are perhaps available to them as readily. So what I would like to do is just guide you through an internal resource installation. And what I'd invite you to keep in mind is that the research shows us that our brain does not differentiate between somebody being with us or us, you know, creating this visualization. Where the barrier is if that left hemisphere, that kind of logic kicks in and says, oh, but actually that person's not here. So what I often invite clients to do is notice that, but then invite that to scoot, right? And come back to the body and just try to be in the experience. So for this activity, we'll focus on a nurturing figure. And typically what I would do, and I'll invite the participation of the group for this as well, is talk about what are the qualities, characteristics, traits of a nurturing figure. So when you think of a nurturing figure, if you can pop in the chat box, the words, qualities, characteristics, behaviors that come to mind for a nurturing figure. And I also often will say to people, when I'm working with them one-on-one, I'm going to keep it more general for the group, but we'll look at, you know, an individual. It might be somebody from TV, real or created, someone we know, a character from a book, right? We can draw from all of these different elements. Okay, so we have kind, supportive, warm, loving. I'm going to add in protective. Great. Any other words, qualities, characteristics that come to mind? I don't know if the Facebook page, I'm going to peek in there to see if there's any posts there as well. Compassionate, great. So basically what we're going to do is do a resource installation focusing on these traits. And the way this works is we're just going to use bilateral stimulation. So what I say this technique does is it takes it from up here, where there's a lot of things that clients and people know, right? We know that something's not our fault, or we know that there are people who care about us. But in here, we don't necessarily feel it. So when we use the bilateral stimulation, it promotes integration between that right brain emotional felt state and that left brain logical level, that meaning-making level, and helps with integrating and embodying. So one of the techniques that we use is tapping it in. So this is based on Laurel Parnell's work of tapping in. I'm going to show you up here, but for many people, this might not feel comfortable. You can tap anywhere. You can tap on the outside of your legs, your knees, you can even tap your feet, right? Or the table in front of you. But the idea is one, then the other, one, then the other. So I'm going to invite you to first call to mind those qualities and characteristics of a nurturing figure. right? And really get a good sense of that before you start tapping. So, kind, warm, loving, attentive, protective, compassionate, right? And being able to really get a sense of that. And when that feels solid for you, when you feel, either maybe you even do have a person or a character or a spiritual figure or an imaginal resource that comes to mind. But the idea would just be just to focus on those traits and tap that in for as long as that feels good for you. Now just invite your attention back to the room whenever you're ready. And just pausing to notice, how did that feel for you? Is anybody comfortable sharing? What did you notice in your body? What did you notice emotionally, physically, somatically? You can unmute or you can type in the chat box, whatever you prefer, but calming, thank you.
It was a bit odd when I started it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like, what am I doing?
Yeah, and the tapping often is, right? The first time we do it, it's kind of like you're like, am I doing it right? This is a little bit weird. Why am I doing this? But I'll tell you, the more that you do it, this is a resource that for the attachment, I work with a lot of clients who, have attachment wounding. And this is huge because this becomes a resource that they can kind of turn to in those moments where perhaps the person in their life is not responding the way that they need or they want them to, and it's so hurtful. But they can then go to, well, how would this nurturing figure respond, right? What would those qualities of a nurturing character be? And just focusing on those nurturing qualities can be so reparative because it's essentially, although it's not changing what is happening, it's validating for us and allowing us to receive what we do need or want. But yeah, it's not uncommon to hear that, Larry. Were you able to settle into it though and experience?
Yeah, well, that was interesting. I mean, when I first started, it was kind of rapid, but when it slowed down, then it felt much more comfortable.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. And that's, again, often getting out of that thinking part of our brain and just, okay, instead of noticing this feels weird, just going with it, being in it, and taking it in with our senses. Beautiful. Okay. Had to change it because of nostalgia. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, I do this with my grandmother who passed long ago, right? And when we have loss or losses in our life and in our relationship, sometimes we can get really focused on the loss, right? But what I often do is say, how can we refocus on maybe the experience we did have with gratitude, which ties in with which Michaela will be talking about. So when I'm missing my grandma, actually, what I will do is I'll go back to taking her in with all of my senses, right? Taking in all of those qualities and tapping it in. And I feel like I'm just wrapped up in her arms, right? Receiving a hug. So it can be a beautiful reparative process, but it's often about redirecting the message that we're sending ourselves in that moment. So yeah, great. So that's it. I'll keep it short and simple today because I know there are lots of people wanting to share something, but I hope that that may have been helpful for you. And the only other thing I'll add, just adding on to Dawn's, there's a beautiful practice that is hand on heart. And the research shows us this little practice actually calms the amygdala and increases empathy. So putting our hand on our heart, and all it is may my heart be filled with a loving kindness, right? And saying it out loud, may my heart be filled with, and then we would fill it with whatever we need, peace, right? May my heart be filled with calm. May my heart be filled with love. And just pausing, connecting with ourselves in that way and offering ourselves whatever we need in the moment can be a beautiful, again, way to authentically and compassionately meet those needs that are coming up. So thanks very much. I hope that was helpful for you, and I wish you a gentle rest of your day.
Thanks, Lori. Like Dawn, very practical, useful kinds of
I just want to say I
suggestions.
like that Lori brought up the amygdala, because the amygdala is the fear center that activates the vagus nerve, right? So, my clients are always joking, like, I know it's my amygdala. I'm like, okay, so let's, work on retraining that amygdala.
Terrific. I'm not sure if it's possible, but if you are, joining us and not in our group, if you have questions or comments and you're on Zoom with us, you can put them in the chat room. So our next speaker is Michaela Mendelssohn. You are muted. There you go.
All right, I'm unmuted now. So hi, everybody, and thank you, Lori and Dawn, for those presentations. I think this is probably kind of a good segue to talking about gratitude. So I'm a clinical psychologist in independent practice in Boston, Massachusetts, and I have a specialty in working with trauma survivors, mainly adults, specifically adult women who are survivors of interpersonal trauma. So I was going to talk about gratitude and cultivating gratitude as another strategy for establishing some internal sense of safety and calm when the external is chaotic and frightening and beyond our control. And especially during, kind of times like this, where things feel so dark, it can be really helpful to refocus our attention onto some of the things that we feel grateful for. And that doesn't mean kind of ignoring the things that are bad or scary or not doing anything about them or not addressing things that kind of we see and feel are unjust. But it's about making space to also reflect on the things in our lives that we appreciate, whether they're tangible or intangible. And in the process of doing so, what people often recognize is that that at least partly some of the things they feel grateful for come from outside of themselves. And that can help us to feel and become more connected to other people, to the world around us, to a higher power, to nature, to whatever it is that we feel grateful for. And at the same time, cultivating a gratitude practice can connect us and make us aware of the things and qualities within ourselves that we value and that we appreciate, whether it's qualities like honesty or bravery or integrity or compassion for other people. And so it can, it can help us in a number of ways to become more kind of grounded and situated. And what's really interesting is that there's actually been a fair amount of research, mainly in the field of positive psychology, that has shown the mental health benefits of practicing gratitude. I was just going to mention a couple of studies. There was one pretty large and well-known study done in 2017 by Emmons and McCullough that looked at, it was a pretty large study looking at groups of students. One group was asked to write about things that they felt grateful for over the past week. Another group was asked to write about things that had irritated or annoyed them over the past week. And a third group was asked to write about just neutral topics or neutral things that had happened over the past week. And what they found is after about 10 weeks of this writing exercise, the students who were in the group that reflected on sources of gratitude, that they were consistently more optimistic. They had had much more positive feelings about their lives. And what was unexpected is they also found that same group was exercising more frequently and had fewer physician visits than the other groups. So that was that was interesting. And then there was another study also done by Seligman, who is one of the kind of big names in positive psychology, where he just compared a whole lot of different positive psychology interventions and found that one of the ones the one with the strongest effect was having his participants write and deliver a letter of gratitude to somebody who had shown them some kindness and hadn't been properly thanked. And that he found that a month after that single intervention or that single activity, people were still reporting positive benefits in terms of kind of feeling happier. So, and there's been other research done also in the areas of couples and areas of like people in the workplace, managers expressing gratitude towards employees that have shown similar findings of these kinds of positive benefits. So, there's certainly there's evidence that, it's not just a theory, there's evidence that gratitude can actually have a very positive, expressing gratitude can have a positive impact on mental health. I wanted to just, one of the things that would be interesting as well, and I don't know if anybody is doing this, would be to see if anybody's studying gratitude in the current context in terms of, kind of whether people who have a consistent gratitude practice are coping any better with the pandemic than, people who don't include this in their ways of coping. It's just an interesting thought. I wanted to run through just a couple of exercises just on the practical side of things that we can do or that we can do with our clients to promote gratitude or to kind of find ways of engaging with this feeling. The one thing that's really easy to do is to have a gratitude journal, which is basically just a matter of kind of every day or every couple of days or every week, just writing down 3 to 5 things that you feel grateful for as a way of reflecting on that. An alternative to that, which can also be really helpful, is to have a gratitude jar, which can be something that you pick out, something that you decorate if you wish, and just to have little slips of paper. And then when you think of something that you're grateful for, to write it on a slip of paper and put it in the jar. And the wonderful thing is then if you're having a day where you're feeling really down or overwhelmed, you can go back to that jar, you can unpack it, you can read over those things, and that's something that can help to lift one's mood. There's actually, I'll talk about children specifically in a moment, but there's some alternatives for that as well. The other idea is to have some sort of object like a rock, like a gratitude rock, something that you can place in a fairly prominent location, like on your desk or next to your bedside table, or so that it kind of acts as a prompt almost every time you see it to think about something that you feel grateful for. There's also, I know people have spoken about kind of meditation and mindfulness meditation. You can do gratitude meditations as well. There are, kind of a variety of different ways of meditating about people, things, experiences that one feels grateful for. What I often find with clients, especially clients who have a hard time identifying sources of gratitude, is to sometimes kind of use prompts. You could even make a worksheet with prompts. So for instance, saying 3 people that I feel grateful for are, I feel grateful for these 3 things that I can hear. 2 teachers that I feel grateful for are, to have those kinds of prompts so that, to make it a more kind of focused, directed task. Another idea, and this was, I think either Laurie or Dawn, I think Dawn spoke about the idea of, taking a mindful walk, but you can also take a gratitude walk or amble, where you actually kind of, take a walk and notice what you see, hear, kind of feel, sense that you feel grateful about. Do you feel grateful about the weather, the temperature, the color of the sky, whatever it is. And then the other idea is to do a sort of a gratitude letter or gratitude visit, which actually involves like writing a letter to somebody that you feel grateful for, especially if it's somebody who kind of, you haven't had an opportunity to express that to. And that can be a letter that you send to that person or not. Or it could be a letter that you take or use as a kind of prompt to go and visit that person, obviously at the moment in a socially distanced sort of way, to be able to share those feelings of gratitude. So those are just a couple of different ideas and exercises. I just wanted to mention a few variations just for doing with children as well. One of those is the idea of you can make a gratitude tree. And that's actually very easy to do if you get a vase and just some kind of branches, and put the branches in a vase, and then cut out leaves from colored paper or even white paper, and punch holes in them. And then with either ribbon or string, you can tie those leaves to the tree, and a child can write something on each leaf that they feel grateful for. So it's basically the idea of a gratitude jar, but it's putting it on a tree, and they can watch the tree kind of bloom and get more leaves, and something that they can keep over time. Also, sometimes it's helpful, if possible, to kind of maybe start a ritual as a family, or as a parent and child, talking about what you're what happened the day before, or what happened today that you feel grateful for. So actually having a consistent time to reflect on what you feel grateful for. And also, of course, children can also do something like a gratitude letter or a gratitude drawing that they can deliver to somebody that they feel especially grateful for or grateful to. So those are just a couple of ideas. I actually just wanted to kind of end off kind of doing one of those exercises amongst our group just for a moment. I just wanted to ask everybody to take a minute just to kind of reflect on something that you feel grateful for right now. And it can be something really small, like I feel grateful because I had a really good cup of coffee this morning, or it can be something kind of big, like I feel grateful for my good health. I feel grateful for the support that that I get from other people, whatever it is. And if you feel comfortable, just to throw it out there, either in the chat box or just to unmute yourself and say it aloud. Okay, so I've got nature, this one, movement, family, I'm grateful for the lake near my house. It's completely restored and comforted me. Anyone else? Feel grateful for being
the same thing, Patricia. Feel grateful for this group to be able to continue to sort of think about things that we can use with our own clients and our own families, and it just sort of replenishes that sense of goodness in the world and that sense of of hope and of peace. So grateful for that.
I also feel grateful for these opportunities to learn from one another. Lenore says, I feel grateful for this fantastic group of presenters. Well, in the spirit of gratitude, thanks to all of you for your attention. And I'm going to pass the mic back to Larry.
Can I just do one thing quickly? I'm just going to put in the chat box, Larry, our Caring Community Connections group. Oh, shoot, I just deleted it. We did a whole series on gratitude for the month of June. So there are free meditations, activities, mindfulness activities. I'll post the link in our chat box, but they're all there. There's a bunch of videos for the whole month. Each day there was a new focus and practice, deepening gratitude practice, because it's so beneficial. And research shows that it boosts immunity by up to 40% or 50% when we practice it 4 times a day. So that's huge, in addition to depression, anxiety, happiness. So
that's great.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks, Michaela. So our next speaker is Patricia Carvalho. You're on mute, Patricia. You're muted.
Now? Well, Carrillo is my second last name. In Spain, we have 2 last names, and even in Peru. My first last name is my father's last name, and the second one is my mother's. So I keep the 2 of them, although they're very long.
Thanks for telling us that.
In gratitude, remembering my mother also. Many people don't use the second last name. This is something I like to do. I'm Patricia Villavicencio Carrillo, originally from Peru. I'm a PhD in psychology, health psychology, thanks to researching on battered women. And I met through this Quest Leonard, who I love and admire. And I'm a specialist in trauma. I run a monographic, how would I call? Once a week, we have this for adults. I work in a public hospital. Plus, I have a practice, but I focus more in the public. And I have this once a week for adults, survivors of any kind of trauma. And when I hear you, and I bet you all have this experience, and patients come and say, I can't do this while I'm under stress, right? So it's very hard when you've been living in a very stressful family situation or whatever work scenario, to find peace and stress management techniques. So I've been thinking while I was listening to Dawn and Larry and Michaela, and I was listening to my patients also. And it came up that that's a superpower resource. People feel that, being mindful is something soft. And well, it's something that calms you down, but gives you superpowers. And it's superpowers for adults, much harder because you are not used to use them. So this for prevention also, if we have kids and you are a teacher or your own kids, teaching them this kind of regular exercises. So they're built in, okay? And one thing that I wish I could have my Spanish speaking patients, that I could do it in Spanish and in English, but it would take too long. There is one exercise I wish I could share with you, which is called the 4 elements exercise. Let me have it here. Ellen Shapiro, who is an EMDR consultant, created this. And Ellen has these 4 elements. The first one is the grounding, and we have to, let's do it all together. We put our feet on the ground, and we include this gratitude for our planet. When we touch our feet to the ground, we connect to this planet. And one thing that we should always remember is not that our square meter doesn't move. We walk through the planet. Even where I'm in Madrid, or in a town in Spain, or you in the United States, Israel, we are all connected. This beautiful view, it's the planet connected, and all the roots and the trees are all connected throughout the world. So please connect to this beautiful planet, especially during COVID times, and try to feel your body on your seat, and just breathe in, breathe out. And this ground that's supporting us. Look around and choose three things in your office or in your room. Pay attention to it. 3 things. Sometimes what I ask patients is to share, but now we just look at 3 things in the room. And what do you hear? What do you see? and that's it. That's earth. Then comes air, and something beautiful that we have to imagine that air flows around the world, and there's air coming from other places that we've never been, and we wish we were there, but air comes to your space. So that air that is in Lori's office will come and someday to my place, or in any of you, and or places I wish I could be, and that's the flow of that air, and beautiful air and clean air will come. Only clean air will come in to your room. So try to inhale and breathe in that blue air. Keep it and let it out with all the worries out, and a beautiful cloud is waiting for that air to come out and take that your worries away and transform those worries in blue and clean air. So you inhale again, keep that air, clean air inside, and you exhale, breathe out. And again, that air, blue and clean air coming in. You keep it, your heart, your body, each cell, and you let out all your worries away. Okay, that's it. Breathe in. And then water. When we are anxious, we feel that there is no saliva in us, right? So I don't know if Don said, or Lori, or Michaela, we drink water, give water when somebody is stressed. So, but I like to play, and I'll give you each one of you candy, magic candy, and you can share that magic candy. And so the flavor that you love, imagine the flavor that you love, and you keep that candy, and that candy will always be there for you. That's a present from me to you. Okay, so come on, I want to see you take it. And we make saliva. Delicious Spanish candy here. Or from Boston, or Canadian. Colombia, Giselle. Honduras, Rita. If you want more, it reproduces. And you can, give some of your candy to the people you love. We'll never run out. Okay? And one thing that we could have is candy in our purse or in our office. We usually have, right? So, and remember my candy, special my candy. And then fire. And fire, we light up our imagination. And sometimes we don't have imagination. Don't worry, we have internet. So or books, or magazines, beautiful pictures you get. So if you don't have internet, you go and ask somebody to draw something you like, or you can draw yourself something you like. So, and what would you like to have in that safe or quiet place? And as soon as you remember what would you love to have, you smile. Or if you don't have imagination, ask somebody to give you that imagination, and we share. And what would you have around would love to have, I don't know, my cats, for example, or vacation time. I smile a lot. Okay, so try to bring any resource that make you feel fine and quiet and safe. And imagine something that will cover a dome, your place, and will only let you have whatever you like. Nothing that you don't like will get in. Only flavors you like, things you like to see and hear, touch, eat. And inhale. You don't need to close your eyes. And if you feel calm, and something that will tell you if you feel calm is try to do an X-ray, body X-ray, and see how you feel. 0 down, 10 up, calm. And if my patients say, oh, it comes up to 6. Okay, let's bring something else. So we can have an 8, at least an 8. And we can help. What kind of things you like to hear, and what kind of music you like to play. Or you have it, and then we do the butterfly hug. And as Dawn did, you don't need to, or Laurie, you did the tapping, right? So it's true that some people don't like to do this, especially men feel kind of funny. So, or even women. So we touch our body gently. Whenever you are, focusing on the things that make you feel calm and happy, and that's it. That's something that we should do every day. We have to explain that if you do it only under stress, might not work. So we encourage our patients and everyone here to do it every day. Every day in the morning, before getting up, 2 minutes or 1 minute, you don't need more. That's a way to stop and inhale, exhale. What you can do, only earth, only air, only water, only fire. And that's it. I think I have finished. Thank you so much for giving me this time to share.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I think we have some time for questions. Doesn't look like we have anything in the chat room from folks other than our group. Maybe they don't have access. Any comments or questions from our task force?
I actually just had a comment that I wanted to add, that I think that especially for trauma survivors, often they feel a lot of fear about relaxing and about letting down their guard and being able to relax the fight-flight response. And I think the reality, and I think what people often respond to hearing, is that being mindful actually in some ways makes you a lot safer, because it means that you're actually paying attention to what is in your environment, rather than being like overly focused on what happened in the past or anticipated danger in the future. And I'm not saying that, you know, obviously that fight-flight reaction is important and adaptive, but being able to be fully present in the moment is actually kind of a very good, it's a good safety strategy, in as much as it also has all these other benefits. So I just wanted to comment on that, because I think that it is really, I think that's a good motivation for being able to practice it.
It's interesting to me, the parallels between a number of things that were said today, and Native American Indians and their beliefs, and Tibetan Buddhists and Hindus and their beliefs. And I think, Patricia, your discussion of earth, fire, air, and water, I mean, that's central to both Native Americans and Tibetan Buddhists. And it's important in indigenous healing from those approaches as well. So getting those in balance is critical to wellness from those points of view. Other comments, questions? Michaela, I wanted to point one thing out about the gratitude conversation. I think there's some populations around the world, some cultures around the world where expressing gratitude, it violates cultural norms and actually makes people feel bad. So I wonder if, and I don't know if there's, I know this from being in cultures that have problems with it. I don't know if there's any research on it, but for instance, the Tibetans will say that, you know, if you thank me or say good things to me, my karma will go down. So they don't want to hear it.
I think that's a really important, I think it's a really important point that it's, you know, a lot of these things are culturally specific, and that it's important to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, in many cultures it's great, but I think some cultures it's problematic.
Can I say
Yeah, sure.
Something, especially during COVID times, lots of anger around the world, and people are angry about how politicians deal with things or how things are, and we complain a lot, and the news are negative. I think we have to focus on what we have and actually don't flow with that kind of emotions and information only. And so we should focus on things that are working in our community and globally, and what can we do, especially in this group. We're trying to give other people than our patients the resources and skills to deal with COVID times. And there are many things that we could be angry about, but we should not focus on this. We should focus on what works for us. And especially during COVID times, that superpower in mindfulness, in all these exercises that we are given to all of you, is for increase your immune system. And so we need to, you know, it's totally linked, the way we feel and the way our immune system works. So this is something that we need to enhance and practice to be healthy.
That's a very good point. We haven't spent much time in our sessions that we've hosted talking about diet. And I mean, you know, we've mentioned water and candy today, but we haven't really talked about how diet plays into this whole picture. So that might be something for the future. So I think we're at a time here. Thank you to the four of you for so many practical, useful, easy to think about suggestions, maybe more difficult to implement, but with practice we can do it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Larry. Sorry, I just cut you off there. I just wanted to thank you all. This was really helpful being a participant and just being able to listen with, and I'm thinking with the loss of so many individuals right now and personally grieving through a loss, being able to hear this has been really helpful. And I just hope that we continue to engage in these conversations and these roundtables from different facets. We have from Spain, we have from Canada, from all these different places, wonderful places. So I really wanted to thank you all, Larry, Michaela, Patricia, Lori, Rohini, who's not here, just everybody. I'm sorry if I didn't mention your name. Thank you all so
well, we're all thinking about you, and you're not alone.
Yeah. Take good care of yourself, Giselle.
Yeah.
Giselle, we love you.
Hugs.
Thank you all. And we will see each other next week. And we were going to continue our roundtables. And I think it's essential for us to continue to have more topics. And we have new members. We have Dawn, we have Nikki, we have Kevin, and we have the old timers, which are us. I'm eternally grateful for all of us. So I thank you. And let's continue.
Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.